traveling in North America definitely changed the way I learn English, and today I'd like to share that with you guys. I'm gonna start with a little background on my English background before traveling in North America. If you want to skip it, you can skip that on, little chapters on the line over here, and go directly through this journey. I'm French. I was born in France, in a very French family. Nobody speaks any other language than French here. I mean, at least in my environment. It was just a French childhood. Learning English in France at French schools is, you probably already heard that we are the worst in Europe at learning languages. I do not know why, but let me tell you that my English level was terrible, as every other student. When I got into high school, I was lucky to be able to integrate a class, like a sort of class in which I will have some of my physics classes and history classes in English. I had amazing teachers that really wanted us to go to the next level of our very poor English level as French students. Nevertheless, when the end of the high school years arrived, we have here in France this big exam. And like everybody else, I knew that my English was just too terrible to even be happy with it, not proud. So I decided to change that, and I took things in my own hands. There's an expression like that. What I did was I binge watched a lot of American shows. I started by trying to understand the language, looking for words and all that, and then I started to talk to myself a lot in the mirror. That was my thing. I remember I started watching with subtitles, English ones, and then I was like, I'm not gonna improve enough, so I started watching without subtitles, which means I had to pause every second almost to look for a new word and try my best to remember it, to not look for it again after like 10 seconds. That was a very fastidious way of learning English, but it paid off because I aced my English exams, and my teachers were like, what did you do? Did you go somewhere? But no, I just worked hard. That being said, my English, even though I aced my English test, we're still in France, so it was not, expectations were that high, and they're still not. It's terrible. I had a passable, let's say, English level. Now, before people ask, and before moving on to the next section of this video, why am I speaking with an American, and why did I choose to speak with an American language? First of all, I was traumatized with my my French teachers trying to teach us British English, and I've always loved a whole lot better the melody of the American accent. It just flows a whole lot better for me. It's just a personal liking preference, so please stop judging that. Everyone has his own preferences. So the first point I want to mention in this video on how traveling in the States, mainly in a bit of in Canada, changed the way I learn English. Nobody has the same accent. Wherever you go, everybody has a different accent. So if you try to put yourself in my shoes years ago, when I was obviously not talking like I am right now, and I had way more difficulties understanding people speaking English, it was still very new to me. It just made things so hard for me and for my brain back then to try to adjust. Because you see, the thing is, as I binge watch a lot of American shows, I was used to a certain accent, the standard accent, whatever that is, because I understood quickly that there is no standard accent at all, even though I really had this point of view back then. So you come from France with your poor English and with your thought of, if I can't understand the standard English accent, I'm good to go. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You arrive in New York. People speak with such a different accent, especially New York is really not a good example, because in New York people speak with so many different accents because there's so many different people, right? But the first time I was in Virginia, Pennsylvania, the East Coast, just going through all the different states. I stayed for 2 weeks, I believe, and I remember being like, so perplexed and a little bit frustrated, understanding and getting conscious that all the work that I did, I had to redo it again. All the words that I did of paying attention, understanding the language, the accent, the understanding getting easier the more I watched the shows and all that. I had to redo that all over again because of people's accents. That was hard. That was a hard reality. That was a hard truth for me to understand, to get conscious about. But that was challenging. And I liked it. I was hating myself back then for not being able to, express myself better and for making people repeat. Even if it was not the accent, it was also, the vocabulary and all that. Mainly, and I've seen that throughout all my, because I've been kind of a bit of everywhere. Yes, I've only scratched the surface in North America, but I've still kind of been everywhere. Florida, Montana, San Diego, Arizona, Toronto, New York. So it was flagrant. Flagrant is, that's another word, I don't know. Flagrant. It was flagrant. For me, as a French, still learning, still trying to understand and get to know those different accents, how, different an accent can be from a state to another. Even within a state, it can be so different. I remember in Arizona especially, and where was that? Well, Idaho was something else. Idaho, Montana, people had so many different accents. To sum it up, that first point, the process of learning the English that I was learning with the American accent, that process, I had to do it all over again as I was traveling the States. And it was just not the accents, it was also the way people speak, the speed at which they speak, which is quite different from one state to another. All that made, and still is making sometimes, my learning of English quite difficult. Quite challenging, let's be positive, quite challenging. The second main point of how traveling in North America really changed the way I learn English is I never stayed enough in one place to get used to an accent, to a certain accent, or to a way of speaking, or to a very specific vocabulary of that region or whatever. It's frustrating. It's a lot. It's very frustrating because when after like 1 or 2 weeks, I'm finally getting used to it, finally getting words, expressions, jokes, and starting to express and to talk and use all that new things, there's a word for that, I don't remember, but that's when I usually go back home. So it breaks everything, and all the work that I built up feels like, bam, it's gone. And when I go back to France, I can only speak English with myself. So that really makes things complicated and challenging for sure, which is why I wish I will spend more time with a group of people that are, from the same area, speaking the same way, the same accent, the same speed or whatever, to really get better at it, or at least get better at one accent so it will make sense when I speak. Because I know that you guys can hear that I'm not a native English speaker because of the way I talk, because I imitate or try to imitate so many different people's accents or things that I see or hear, that in the end it's a medley of everything. And even though I hope most people can understand me, it's not an accent. It's not perfect, obviously. The third point I like to express is that the language itself is evolving as I am traveling through different places in North America. And that really makes me perplexed. You see, when I travel, I get to talk to different people, people working here and there, people from, for example, a group that I'm traveling with, or whatever. So I get to talk with different people from different kind of age ranges. And let me tell you, it's the same. It's exactly the same in France. But there's definitely a difference in vocabulary, or the way people say things, or the words they use to say things, from one age range to another. Fun fact, I actually talked not long ago to a childhood friend of mine. So we're the same age, and we haven't talked in a long time. I haven't talked to a person my age, French, in my age in a long time. And throughout the conversation, he used different words and way of speaking that I did not understand, because those were new words in the French language that I never heard before. So I had to, at some point, I had to tell him that I didn't understand that. What does that word mean? What do you mean by that? That is exactly what I experienced in the USA, especially. Talking to people from different range of age, you can definitely notice the difference in the way they speak, the way they say things, the words they use, or the way they're gonna mean something. And more than once I had to ask my friend at the moment afterward, what did that person mean by that, or what was the meaning behind that word? And my friend would tell me with another word or with another way of saying it, exactly the same thing that person said, but I will understand it. And it just, there's never only one way of saying a word. I mean, of saying something, of meaning something. It could be through a simple word or through a way to say it or an expression. And that also is challenging when you're learning a language, because you're learning and you're traveling throughout different parts of a country that uses different way of speaking, and at the same time the language is evolving. There are new words, there are old expressions still used, new expressions that you have no idea what they mean, and it's fascinating. Honestly, it's so fascinating. I mean, you're always learning something new, which is great. It's just that sometimes you feel completely dumb and you're like, I don't know what the heck this person is talking about, or everything made sense until that one word was introduced to me new, and I was like, then I don't know what you're talking about. And well, thankfully, I usually, I just ask my friend, or I just have the person, or I just I do that. Usually works, but I guess it still is better to ask the person what they mean. My first point is a bit of everything. I just wanted to mention that when you travel, and this is where it's very subjective, when you travel like I travel, a bit of everywhere, kind of a lot, which I'm very fortunate about, I see a lot of things and I hear especially a lot of things. A lot of way of speaking, vocabulary, words, accents. It's a lot. Let's just say that. It's such a short amount of time, when I am in a certain place. It's a lot. It's just for my brain. Sometimes so much information can be too much information. As I'm trying to get better expressing myself, I also have to relearn some processing of understanding some accents and way of speaking, or words or expressions. So as I'm getting better at the language, there's still this unknown that comes every time I travel, and it's piling up. And even though I'm getting better, there's always unknown piling up, which is amazing because it means I always have something new to learn about that beautiful language that is English. But at the same time, it felt like I'm getting so far away from my goal of having this perfect, English speaking, English language. See, I don't even know how to formulate that. And sometimes I get angry about it because I feel like I'm never gonna get to that goal of being able to speak like a native. And I feel like if I were to live for some time, for a few weeks or a few months around people speaking English, I will probably get a lot closer to that goal for sure. But I mean, there are possibilities to just be positive. There are possibilities. It's just that sometimes I really feel behind on the language. Fifth point that really makes things complicated when you're traveling in North America is obviously you're gonna have many people that are coming from different countries, and we're gonna stay with only the English-speaking countries. But you travel, you already have all those different accents, way of speaking, and all that to deal with as you're learning the language, and then you have this occasional British guy or Australian woman popping up in the picture, and that is just so blurring for me, in my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, that is not American. That is nothing like American. So I usually understand quite well the British people or Australian people. Let's not talk about Scottish people or Welsh people. You notice the difference right away. Even though you notice the difference, and even though I can still quite understand them, it still is another challenge. I guess it's good in a way that I can see if in an American, English American environment, I can still do my best with Australian or British people language. As a French person, the process of understanding American language is not the same as understanding British or even Australian speaking people. It's different. The way at least my brain works, it does things differently. So you have different processing at the same time, and your brain was like, I'm just gonna listen. how can I talk? I'm not even try to talk. I'm bilingual, but my English is far away from being perfect. You can definitely hear it. You know, when I will watch myself in this video, and I will edit this video, I will see every single mistakes I made along this video. It will be vocabulary, way of saying words, you know, pronunciations. I'll hate myself for that, but at least I will be learning. You know, the other day I finally learned about delicious. I used to say yeah. How you say that? Delicious. Yeah, delicious. Because in French, I said délicieux. I don't know, I just copy past that pronunciation. But it's delicious. And so, yeah, well, after a friend pointed it out a few times, I understood it. But that's fun because if you watch my Krispy Kreme video on Paris, Mom said it's delicious because she heard me so many times saying it, you know, with that wrong pronunciation, that now she has it, which is fun, you know, it's fun. There are many expressions, many words, many way of saying things, many jokes that I have yet to understand and to even use myself. But the key really is to express yourself, to talk. That's the way you're going to improve. Like, at least that's the way I really improved. I talk to myself all the time. Well, nowadays I guess my English is a whole lot better. But back in the day, I will take a mirror and talk to myself, and I will try to imitate the way the people's mouth were moving in the shows I was watching, to try to have the exact same way, you know, of saying those words, whatever they were. And that really, really, really helped me a lot. I mean, if you can talk to, you know, people in real life, it's even better because you can ask them to correct your pronunciation or something like that. Like nowadays, I mean, it's been years now since I've been, you know, thinking in English all the time, German English and other languages. I almost never think or dream in French, which I don't mind. I mean, I will always be able to speak French anyway. But I think it's because of all the work that I did of always having an English environment around me that really helped me be able to talk like I do. Even though it's far from being perfect, at least people can, I hope, understand me. And just the fact that being able to have a conversation with someone from so far away, you know, from another continent, it's just amazing. You have this link, you know, suddenly with the people you don't know anything about just because of a language. You know, that makes me really happy that I am able to speak English, especially English, as it's, you know, the language that is mostly used throughout the world. I think, to sum it up, traveling throughout North America was more challenging than language, you know, speaking, than I expected, because of that soi-disant standard accent that is nowhere. I should say I'm fortunate to be able to get to know and to hear so many different accents as I'm traveling, even though it can be complicated. I guess it's a really good point for my learning, my process of learning at least. Nevertheless, I want to say thank you because you guys, you know, you take the time to write comments like, oh, your English is good, oh, you use that word, that's nice, or oh, I've been watching you from your FrenchTastic channel and now you're on that channel and your English has improved a lot throughout the years. And it's just, you know, I felt so good to read those comments, and I want to thank you for that, for taking the time to do it, because, well, you know, I can definitely tell from watching my own videos from years ago that I improved. But, you know, there's that saying, you're your worst enemy or your worst critic, something like that. That definitely is a case for me with my English level, my English language. So it still feels good to be able to see that there is improvement. And it's fun for, you know, it's fun to be able to see how my language is evolving and progressing throughout the year. And the fact that you guys can see it, can notice it and hear it, especially. You know, being able to share that with you, share that little journey with you, language journey, I'll say, I think it's fun. It's cool for you to be able to see that, I feel like. So I do hope in a few years I will watch this video and the future Mary will say, oh, wow, I've improved.